What's up, everybody? I'm Bobby, the host of Fight Junkeez, and today I have a really, really tremendous guest on, Eric Nicksick. He is a tremendous coach and, huge face in the MMA community. Super excited to have him in. If you don't know, he's trained everybody from Francis Ngannou to Aljamain Sterling to Sean Strickland to Casey O'Neill, and he's a Vegas resident since he was born, from what I'm hearing. So I really appreciate you coming in. I have not really had a lot of time to get like coaches' perspective. You don't see a lot of the coaches get the light that I think they should get, because fighters aren't going to get where they're at without you guys. So what's up, man?
Nothing. Actually, just got done training. Head over to come see you.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, the gym is dope. I was there yesterday. That's where I got my Extreme Couture. So if you don't know Extreme Couture, Randy Couture's gym, you've been there since you were a purple belt in 07, right?
Oh, day one. Yeah, day one starter for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you're from Vegas.
Yep, born and raised.
Born and raised. I said, well, just get right into it. You got to have like an athletic background, right?
Yeah.
How did you get into this? I know that this is farther along. You're 43.
43.
Yeah. So how did it all start? Football? You're a pretty big dude.
Yeah, football was it for me. My dad was a football coach, so pretty much really remember growing up on the football field.
Gotcha.
Every summer and going out and training and stuff. And obviously this was a time when I think all the athletes were playing multiple sports. Now I think if you're playing football, you can play football year round. You can continue on with it or do something 7-on-7 or do something along the lines that pertain to football. But, most of my childhood that I remember, Bobby, was like really, it was playing each sport in that season. But mostly I just remember being on the football field with my dad, so that's kind of what got my athletic career started was being out there with the old man.
Yeah, those are the days.
Yeah, drinking out of the hose, and the PVC pipe with holes in it, and
filling your pocket with sunflower seeds.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the old man, all the coaches became like my uncles, and they would always be hazing me and doing crazy shit, taping me to the goalposts, and
nice.
Giving me a red man shoe when I was like 7 years old, and I'm throwing up everywhere, So it was a typical football upbringing.
Yeah, that was back. I'm gonna be 37 in May, so roughly a month, and it was a little different back then.
Yeah, a little different back then.
A little bit.
Yeah,
Even my military, when I went in, my squad leaders were probably your age.
Oh yeah,
they had me by 5 years, and they were just hard individuals.
That was it, man. It was a different era of upbringing, and there was no, really my uncle, he was our linebackers coach and our strength and conditioning coach, so coming up through high school, my dad was our D coordinator, my uncle was there, and my other uncle was the dean. So in high school, like, you got away with a lot of shit, but you didn't get away with shit,
Yeah, because they got you later.
Yeah, and then my uncle David was more the hammer than anybody, like he had free reign. So, he was kind of the disciplinary guy, where my dad was more of the, the intellectual type of coach and more the coordinator, where Uncle Dave was the hammer, so it was tough to get away with anything, but it was a good balance between family members that kept you accountable. But you didn't get away with shit. And then when my uncle passed away, I think about 12 years ago, but when he passed away, I remember like the moment I got out of high school and when he became kind of your friend, because he didn't have to coach you anymore, I realized all of those lessons that he was trying to put you through were strategic. It was like he'd make you do things to failure. And you're like, well, I can't do this, right? And it was a purpose behind it, because he just wanted to see you attempt to try. And then as you got older, you understood, like, man, all this dude wanted to do was put you through hard lessons in life, because once you got out of that high school phase, every fucking lesson was hard.
Yeah.
Everything you're doing was hard. So it was like, he was like almost teaching you in through the weight room, in through football, the lessons of life in a weird kind of roundabout way.
I think football, looking at like everybody that I grew up with that was successful, and maybe they only played up until senior year and then they stopped. I tried freshman football, maybe 120 pounds soaking wet. Went to like 4 practices and was like, this isn't for me. Went back to baseball. But yeah, that had to have mold you in those years into like a harder individual, knowing the work ethic, being able to push through the workouts. Like you said, learning that just because they're doing something right now and I don't understand it doesn't mean there's not a reason for it.
Correct.
And that all kind of comes into coaching too.
Yeah.
Which is cool. It's got to be, Vegas is so hot.
It got hot.
It's got to suck to play football in the summer here.
It got hot, and it was weird because it's crazy to say this, but every year you expected somebody to pass out and die.
Yeah.
Somebody across the valley was going to die of heat stroke. It was just like a given, like it got to the point where, I mean, I hate to say this, it was almost like comical in a way. All right, who's going to die this year?
Yeah.
Because it's going to get so hot and no one's going to, and like back then you didn't get water. No one was giving you water. They didn't give a shit.
You were weak if you got water.
Yeah, you need water.
You little punk, stop drinking water.
This dude's fucking hyperthermia. He's dying of heat stroke.
Well, I was a heat casualty in Kuwait. We went from Germany. We deployed September 23rd of 2007. So it was still fairly cold in Germany.
Right.
Germany's just freaking wet and, dark. And then we got to Kuwait and we were there for like 18 days. But
sandbox.
Yeah, just super hot. And I remember we were doing a react to a helicopter down. We were supposed to be personal security for General Hertling at the time. So we were like reacting, like if his chopper went down. And I remember carrying this sand-filled dummy, and that's all I remember. I remember waking up in the tent with like ice all over me, and I was like, "What the fuck happened?" They're like, "You passed out. He's a heat casualty."
Oh man.
So that's the only thing I can relate to the heat.
Yeah.
To the heat here. I can't imagine putting gear on, and I mean I can, but not like willingly,
It's funny because guys I'll run into from high school to this day, like we're still friends and our kids are all playing football together now. That's the first thing we always laugh at. Is like, how the hell did we play football on this shit?
Yeah.
And look, like that's where ice baths became popular. We started doing ice baths back then. It wasn't necessarily because of lactic acid. It was because we were fucking
hot.
on fire, topping in garbage cans full of ice.
Do you think that that's more just like a fad or is it actually beneficial?
I think it's beneficial in certain regards, and Brad Tavares, myself, and Dan Ige, we're big advocates on it. Like I have Revive Plunge, I do it every morning, and sometimes for me it's not necessarily the physical effects; it's more the mental effect. Gotcha. Like it sounds corny to say, but it's like I hate doing it. It's hard. But it's like one thing I can conquer in the morning and just get it done. And it's like the first hurdle that I jump through.
It's your first win of the day.
It's kind of the first win of the day. And I hear that. I hear Goggins, I hear all those guys, and kind of, it's to me, it's kind of played out, but it's also true. I don't care about what the studies tell or say. I care about how it affects me. Right. And sometimes like we read these self-help books and all these things and try to change. But whatever effect it has on you, on your person, then I'm all for it. And dude, it's hard. And I get in that motherfucker and I'm like, all right, 37 degrees, give me 3 minutes and 30 seconds in this bitch. And I'm counting the seconds and I'm done. It's this rush of adrenaline. I'm like, fuck yeah, I did it.
Yeah, I did that shit.
I did that shit, and I feel good and I get out, and of course it has a dopamine effect and your day feels a lot better. So whatever it is that makes you feel the way that makes you feel good, and I'm all for it.
Yeah, I agree. I remember being in Germany in the winters as a soldier, and like I never complained about the cold, and I was just solid. And now I've been out like 13, 12 years, and like I am such a wuss now.
Yeah.
I got to go get a damn cold
But
plunge.
your body gets used to it, now I'll get in there and it's, it's working on your breathing. I get in, boom, I'm okay, and the next thing you know, the 3 minutes fly by to a point where, okay, I jumped it to 3:30 and now I'm going to kind of keep bumping it up a little bit longer. But and at 37 degrees, you don't need to be in there longer than 4 or 5 minutes, you do the job anyway. But Brad Tavares is doing it like twice a day in between and he's in camp right now and in between sessions. But again, like for him, he loves it. It makes him feel good. By all means, man, get after it.
Yeah, we gotta tell John, if you're watching this from in there, we got to get a cold plunge for the office.
There you go. There you go.
That'd be cool. Sorry, everybody. They're all going to hate me now. But yeah, so you have been in Vegas your whole life, but did you wrestle? How did you get into the mixed martial arts stuff and the fighting?
Yeah, so I did. I tried to wrestle my sophomore year in high school, and my football coach was walking by the wrestling room, and he was a little short guy, right? And it wasn't that we weren't allowed to wrestle, but skill position players weren't really supposed to be wrestling. They're supposed to be doing 7-on-7s.
Gotcha.
Right? So I'm in wrestling with Coach Steen, and he was adamant that I started wrestling just to learn, and I was loving it. It was probably my first weekend. My dad knew I was wrestling. My uncle knew I was wrestling, but the head coach, Larry Thomas, didn't know I was wrestling. And he comes walking by, and he's so short, but I remember seeing like his fucking little head go walk by the window. And like, it was one of those things like, oh, he didn't even see me. And I see it turn right back around. He opens the door. He's like, what the fuck are you doing? And I was like, I'm wrestling. And he starts like getting mad at Coach Steen. He's like, no, he's not wrestling. He's got 7-on-7s. He's a skill position player. He's got film. He's got this. He's got this. And that was it. Pulled me out. And I was like, fuck, never got to wrestle after that.
Wow.
Yeah. So it wasn't until after like senior year of football was over, then I got to do some other stuff because you're pretty much done with football, and you're done, you didn't have to. I did track and did some other stuff as well. But for me, it was really strictly football. And then learning the skill positions, like from quarterback to receiver to safeties to corners, whatever I can do. And then when I got to college, I didn't know where I was going to fit in. So I grew into my body, and they're like, yo, you're going to play free safety. So that was the whole thing for me, was just kind of just trying to learn as many positions as I could so I could be a commodity for whatever team I decided to go to.
It seems like everything you did, the culmination of it, set you up for success in the coaching world with mixed martial arts, watching tape, hard workouts, being able to look forward and really know what you're going to need to do to prep to get to the end result.
Big time.
That's pretty cool, because it's not like you didn't look at the TV back in 96 and go, I'm going to be I'm sure I don't know if it crossed your mind then.
Not even like, of course we all had the VHS tapes, and I was definitely the guy like beating up on all my friends, like, let me try this.
Yeah.
Let me try this on you and do all that stuff. Like one of my best friends to this day, still Jeff Summers. Jeff, like I broke his ribs one time. Like he's like, dude, like stop, like just like pulling guard and doing stuff and trying this move and doing all these things. And there was no gyms here to train at. There was no like jiu-jitsu schools back then. The first jiu-jitsu school that we really had was JSEC, was with John Lewis. And that was like, he was like the legend when it came to like a lot of that really brought Vegas jiu-jitsu to light was John Lewis. And I think I was in college. I was pretty young when that opened up. It was off of like Valley View. I think it's the same where Fight Capital is right now. I think the same building. But yeah, so when I was going to school at Dixie, you were on scholarship and they own your ass. So you can't, I couldn't snowboard. You can't do a whole lot of things. So if you came to town and you did some jiu-jitsu stuff, you had to keep it under wraps. Like this is before the era of social media and everything like that. But that was really where it was kind of first introduced to me. But all the while I always had football. So this was always kind of a side thing for me. But where it transcended was when I was out of football, and this by coming from the military background. Yes, of course you miss the military side of things, but it's more the camaraderie. You miss the teams. You miss the guys and the fucking banter and all the bullshit, right?
Yeah.
That's what I truly miss the most. I didn't realize that, Bobby, until I got to Extreme Couture. I didn't know what I was missing. I missed the physical aspect of things, and I missed all that stuff. But it wasn't until I got around like Jay Heron and Mike and Randy and those guys where I'm like, man, this is what I missed the most, was the camaraderie.
Yeah.
I miss being around like-minded individuals, and I think I was at a time in my life where I bartended for 20 years. I just did it at night. So my days were filled with whatever I wanted to do, school, train, being a dad, whatever it may be. But that kind of bartender life, I felt like I was surrounded by people that all they wanted to do was drink, smoke, gamble. And I'm like, fuck, I don't want to be around this shit.
Yeah.
And finding Extreme Couture in a lot of ways really changed my entire path in my life, 100%. But I needed that at that moment in time where Randy's getting ready to fight Tim Sylvia. The gym wasn't even open yet. And they're like, yeah, sure, you can come learn and train. And that really got my foot in the door. And I'm member number 1 at Extreme Couture.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I just had a similar conversation with Jake Ellenberger because he was in the Marine Corps.
Yep.
I remember getting out of the Army, and one day I was a squad leader, training soldiers, and just like they were my family. And the next day I'm in Jersey living at my dad's house, and I'm just Bobby. and no one cares. Nobody cares that you got ribbons or you deployed. Nobody. And I had that identity loss, and it was one of the hardest things I had to deal with.
Yep.
Not just the identity, like we were talking about, the camaraderie.
Correct.
And that's why I love this. For everybody that's watching, Fight Junkeez came about obviously with John, but because I think he saw the actual like love that I have for the sport.
Right.
I'm not a journalist. I didn't go to college for 4 years to learn how to interview. I'm not that guy. I'm just I love it.
Yep.
And I being around fighters the last couple weeks since we started the show and I got back to Vegas, we all have a very similar mindset.
100%.
Which is why we spoke about going on Friday. You have
MVP.
the so it's, what is it? MVP is.
So that's essentially kind of was the brainchild of why we started MVP, merging vets and players. So crazy backstory. I see it was like on HBO, some special about a gym in San Diego. And you know how San Diego is a huge military area of the country.
Coronado, all that
Coronado,
stuff. Yeah.
you have, the Miramar, you have Marines. I mean, it's a huge military community in San Diego. Well, a gym started basically the idea of bringing people that got out of the military, gave them a place to train, and just almost kind of brought them back together a little bit, but through MMA. So that idea got me like sparked. I'm like, oh man, like Randy's GI Foundation, he does so much with the military, gives back so much, he does this great charity. I go, I wrote out all this like game plan on how I wanted to start kind of that sort of scenario through Extreme Couture with the GI Foundation. I sit down with Randy and I go, hey boss, I have this idea. I want to start this charity. I want to call it this. He goes, bro, this is crazy. I have the same thing, but it's through Jay Glazer. Jay Glazer just started the same exact idea that you're talking about in LA. It's called MVP. I actually wanted to talk to you about bringing that chapter over.
Wow.
And I was like, no shit. So literally we sat down, like I rolled this out for him and he goes, bro, I sat down with you to bring you this. So I go, okay, well, let's just piggyback off of what Jay's doing. Because Jay already kind of had the ball rolling. So that's what we did. And I think we're 7 years now in with MVP at Extreme Couture. And the whole idea was the exact same reason why I stepped foot in Extreme Couture. I wasn't military, but I was looking for camaraderie. I was looking for people that had the same mindset and same goals as what I did. And that's what brought us MVP, was like, man, let's give military personnel and former athletes a place where they can converge and train, and all the while have that outlet and have that ability to kind of vent and have it around like-minded individuals that have been through the same things that you guys have been through.
I think that's tremendous. That is literally one of the biggest, and that's why I tell like my Joes and my troops, don't text somebody if you think you're worried about them. FaceTime them. Show up at their house.
For sure.
Go look them in the eye.
Yeah.
Call their spouse. Call their brother.
Yep.
Because there's so many of us that are just getting lost in the sauce. And it's not, I think it comes down to, it turns in, it doesn't start as the victim mindset, with people in general, not just vets. I think it turns into that like self-pity over time. And if you get enough people to say, are you okay?
Right.
Eric, are you good? Eventually you're going to start, identifying as that victim.
Right.
But these same people that identify as a victim used to be warriors.
Yeah.
They used to be running 13-minute 2 miles and doing 80 push-ups and, just loving life and serving their country. And now they're just... So camaraderie is definitely one of the biggest things. I especially think for combat vets that deployed, because I spent 15 months with the same squad, and like to this day, I love every one of them. But yeah, when I lost it, I was completely lost, and I wish I would have found something like that sooner. I probably wouldn't have went through everything I went through.
Yeah, I think it's important. And I don't know how most of the general population can ever do this or achieve this, but it really was an eye-opening experience for me to be able to go to JBLE with George and Goes and go on those military tours and see firsthand what military families go through, right? And I think it puts a lot of things in perspective for us. And really, you're very thankful, right, for what these families have to go through a lot of times. Like, I remember going to like the almost kind of the Walmart when you're down there, and it's a lot of basically that they become single moms. They're working, they're doing all these things, and while their husband's out on deployment and trying to hold it down and doing all the other things that it was such a different perspective, I think, for me, understanding what the day-to-days go like. And, it really, I think, you empathize with that, with the military personnel. So when they're out, right, when the uniform comes off, like Randy always talks about that, when the uniform comes off, like they don't have that anymore. They don't have that, I guess, that identity, and how do we replicate that? How do we bring it back to light? And that's kind of how the program started. I was out there with General Malcolm Frost, who I still talk to, right? 4-star general. And the first thing he said to me, we started talking about MVP, he's like, Eric, we don't have as many programs for once they're out of the military. He goes, it's like the VA. And it's like, here's any drugs that we can get. And this is a 4-star general talking about this. He goes, bro, we don't have any programs to help rehabilitate and to help them get them back in. And he goes, dude, I love this. And he's like, whatever you guys need, you let me know. So like even the brass understood that there was a fault there in the way the system is being ran. And how many times
that's awesome. A 4-star?
Yeah, I still talk to him this day. He's now retired, man, and we write each other on Instagram all the time, but super, super solid guy. But here's the thing, like when you start being around people like that, like the level of accountability, like somebody that you would like, this dude is a guy I would go to battle with, right? Yeah. Like he came in and actually did a MVP meeting with all of our guys, and we brought him in one time. And so people had so many questions because when do you ever get a general that's going to be standing there face to face with you at MVP? Never, right? And this dude, like almost like a politician, like he understood every little nook and cranny of what the system looked like.
I mean, he's been there.
He's been there
from being either a private or a brand new lieutenant all the way to a 4-star. So they I look at generals at that level, they're like a grandfather.
Right.
They have all the knowledge, all the experience. Yeah, I think that's such a good program. The accountability is awful, but it's also fitness. I think at my clearest mindset is when I'm in the best shape.
Right.
And when everybody gets out of boot camp or they're at their unit, we're doing PT as a team 5 days a week. We're in good shape. We have a purpose. We're all goal oriented. Yep. And then we lose it. So I think I really appreciate you guys for doing that.
No, we love it, man. And it's really Bruno and Isaac that are there that took it over. And that program, like Bruno and Isaac were member number one. Like they were there the very beginning, right? So having two guys that had been there since the inception of what we began, they understood the vision, and now it's their program. Their heart and soul is built into that. But they're also combat vets, and like that, the reason why they understand the pulse of what MVP is supposed to be about.
That's so awesome. So we were talking about the gym and coaching and MVP. I know at least the people that I know personally that knew you were coming on today. They were interested. You're around the guys, the ones we see on the TV.
Yeah.
That's how has that kind of been? I know you have a family. I usually don't ask people about because I don't know if there's a lot of weird people in the world.
No.
I have daughters, so I'm just like that's another time or place. But you're a dad, a husband, and then you're coaching some of the most prominent fighters. Like, how is that? I saw one of your interviews about Francis's second fight at the Apex, and you were like, "This is the first time I've ever played a video game in real life."
Yeah,
like that had to be like if you step out and you look in, kind of like you said, you try to take it in a few seconds every time,
right?
Which I think is cool because you can get lost in the moment. You can just like that's just your daily life.
Yeah.
But to fans and a lot of people around the world, like they don't even have money to go to a fight.
Yeah.
So to be cage side with these champions, how is it? It's got to be awesome, huh?
I would say so. And when the days get long and the days get tiring and the camps get long and you're sore and you're beat up, there's just no better feeling in the world than that walk and being 10 steps behind your fighter, right? And letting your fighter get the light and the shine, but like you're that kind of leader from the back, and you get to see everything and everything play out in the cage. 8 weeks of hard work, but not only 8 weeks for camp, but like Dan Ige and I, we've been together for 6-7 years now.
Yeah.
So like just seeing the way that he's grown and the fighter that he is today because of all of our hard work together, those moments of just straight up just being proud, and we definitely have the best job in the world. And sometimes, you have to put things in perspective. Like, yeah, sometimes the travel's long, but then you're like, well, dude, I get to travel to Dublin.
Yeah.
I get to go to Ireland right now.
Abu Dhabi.
For free. Abu Dhabi, I'm going to England. I'm doing this, I'm doing that with some of my best friends. And we get to go get in a fist fight and make some money and be on TV. Like, what better job is there,
Yeah.
So, again, to me, it's a lot about reminders and perspective at the time and the moment. And we definitely have the best gig in the world.
When did you know that you were going to go that route? Because I looked at some of your stuff. You started teaching jiu-jitsu with the kids.
Yeah.
And then I guess Randy came to you and said, I want you to be a part of the future of this gym. And he must have seen leadership in you and potential at that time.
Yeah. So I was at Extreme Couture for my first year and just training. Like Dennis Davis was, probably the most influential in my career, and really still is to this day. Like just a guy that's always been there for me. And I started training with Dennis a lot. Well, what happened was a guy didn't show up for whatever practice it was. It was a grappling practice, right? We didn't have jiu-jitsu back then. It was just straight no-gi grappling.
Gotcha.
And then so Randy's was kind of in a bind. He's like, hey, can you run this practice for me? It was I think 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock practice. And I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. So I ran it that Friday, and everybody loved it. It was, I well thought out. I put everything together like a curriculum, like I would. And he goes, hey, do you mind taking this Friday over? And it was an adult no-gi jiu-jitsu at 11 a.m., whatever it was. And I'm like, sure. And like, dude, Bobby, I loved for that thing. I cared for that class. I text everybody. I wanted numbers. I wanted people there, and I really cared about it. And then that class had like 4 or 5 grew into like 11 or 12. Then it grew into like 20 to the point where other coaches were like, hey, dude, what are you doing to grow this class? And it was just really, I think, more passion. That was it. Like, and like Vinny Magalesh is one of my best friends to this day. We talk every day. Vinny is the most accomplished grappler that I've ever been around in my life. And Vinny would come to my class. And I'm like, what am I going to coach Vinny? And it wasn't like you're coaching Vinny. Vinny just was like, yo, I just love being around this environment. I love the energy. I love how you coach. I love this. I love that. And then, that class was just something that I really, really cared about. Then, well, guess what happened? Then I got Wednesday. So I had Wednesday and I had Friday. And then more and more fighters were showing up to the classes. So then I started coaching more of those guys like Gil Gordato and Jimmy Jones. And those guys really got my foot in the door. And then Dennis Davis, now he's still having his active career. Dennis like, hey, can you corner me? And then Martin Kampman gave me the opportunity to corner him for my first, UFC fight. Ray Sefo was my first head coaching job. Brad Tavares and I have been together for 14 or 15 fights. Those guys really allowed me to kind of feel that okay, this is something that I can do. And then it was Jay Huron that really pushed me in that direction. Because I'm training with the guys. I'm in there every day, and Jay just pulled me aside one day. He's like, bro, what's the plan? Like, what are you trying to fight? He goes, and I'm like, Jay, I don't know if I want to be a pro fighter. Like, I just kind of see all these guys that are just really not making any money and kind of spinning their wheels, but I feel like I have a path here in coaching. And Jay's like, bro, that's it. You need to start coaching. So funny, because I didn't know how to hold pads. I didn't know how to do a lot of stuff. And I'd ask Jay and I'd ask Ray, and I was like, hey, I want to learn how to hold pads. And Ray's like, okay, be here every Tuesday and Thursday at 10 a.m. You're going to hold pads for me. And that's how I started learning how to hold pads, was from Ray Sefo, 6-time world champ K1 kickboxer, right? Jay Huron, one of the best veteran fighters I've ever been around in my life. Jay's like, all right, hold for me. You hold 3 rounds. Okay, and I'll learn how to hold pads. So holding pads was one thing, and then understanding how to correct the guys in the pads was another. And that all took just straight up reps and time and
some sweat equity.
Some sweat equity. And then Randy, it was actually more Coach Follis had a great saying. Was very young in my coaching career. He goes, don't ever become a specialty coach, right? Don't just feel like you're just going to be a jiu-jitsu guy, or don't be just a striking guy or a wrestling guy. Learn it all. Learn it from the feet to the floor, because when you go on the road with these young guys, they can't afford to take 3 or 4 coaches. They can only take one coach. He said, so become a irreplaceable commodity for these young fighters. Learn how to wrap their hands, learn how to hold their pads, learn how to wrestle with them, learn how to grapple with them. And I took that to heart. So it's like, okay, I'm going to learn all this shit as much as I can and be the best MMA coach. I don't want to be a specialty coach. I don't want to be labeled as one or the other, right? So when a fighter hits you up and like, yo, E, can you come with me to San Diego? Can you come with me to Florida? All you need is one guy. I'll cut weight with you and I'll do everything from the feet to the floor. And I think that helped me really mold myself into the coach that I am today.
That's extremely impressive because, I mean, you look at some of the, I was going to ask you about that and you just kind of laid it out because you do have your subject matter experts. You're this is my jiu-jitsu coach.
Yep.
This is my Muay Thai coach, my striking coach. This is a guy who holds the pads for me. But yeah, to be that, not just that leader, but that commodity that's going to be worth irreplaceable. You're irreplaceable.
Yeah.
And to be able to travel, I mean, that had to be, were you intimidated at one point to say, man, like this is, you know, I've been watching these fighters and this is a lot to learn? Or you were just, I mean, you seem like obviously you're like, screw it. I'm going to go learn all this shit. Let's get it.
A little bit of both, like just dumb enough to where like, look, there's a lot of humility because I was never a pro fighter. So it's like, hey man, I'm going to ask a lot of questions and I'm not afraid to ask Ray a question because Ray has opened that door of where he's not going to, you know, I'm not going to feel embarrassed, right? He's not going to humiliate me for asking a certain question, right? And then like having Dwayne Ludwig as one of my striking coaches, having Ray Sefo, having Dennis Davis, having Vinny, you know, having Randy, having all these people around me where it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to like be wrong, you know? And I think your ego is one thing, right? Like you get constructive criticism. I love my relationship with like Dean Thomas and Henry Hooft and people like that. People that I consider colleagues of mine, but I also look up to. I'll call Dean and probably after any fight, I'll call Dean and hey, what'd you see? Because you understand, like you get tunnel vision and like a sniper, he's only looking at the target, but you have your spotter who's looking at the entire environment. And I look at like Dean Thomas as a guy who look at for something from a different perspective that I might not have saw, you know, and it's okay to pick up the phone and ask like, hey, what could I have done better here? And he'll tell you, man, I think you could have done this better. And you're like, shit, I never thought of that. Right. So having that humility and understanding that this game is endless, it's infinite. You're never going to learn it all. Right? There's not like you mastered it. You win. Here's your degree.
I got it this week.
You got it. You got everything. You know, you don't get that. So if you're not staying on the cutting edge and you're not asking questions and you're not doing your studies, you're not getting on YouTube, you're not buying those dynamic striking DVDs and finding ways to learn. Like I just bought Matt Brown's freaking Clint series stuff because, oh man, we need to learn how to throw better elbows. Right?
His elbows are, oof. Who was that knockout with that elbow?
Diego Sanchez.
Yeah.
Like just off the guy. So how are you not, you have the ability to learn in this day and age. You have it at your fingertips. Now, this is what's so crazy about this era of MMA is back in the day, 10, 11 years ago, you had to directly go to that coach, right? And train with that specific coach for months on end to learn and da-da-da-da. Now you can plug on YouTube. Instagram, right? Dynamic striking, and you can buy a DVD series and invest and learn. And maybe you learn one or two things, but those one or two things can ultimately change the route of where you're at. I can tell you this too, Bobby, like single-handedly, without me not training with Dwayne, I don't have a game plan like I had against, you know, Stipe Miocic with Francis, right? Like Dwayne Ludwig has shown me so many different things and channeled a lot of different ideas that funneled me into why I coach Dan Ige a certain way. What I have with Kai Kamaka, what I have with Francis, what I have with Jeremy Kennedy, right? Like that alone has helped me form me into a different coach.
Well, I think your mindset is the dominant reason on your success. And everything that you just said, granted, your mindset is that it's for fighting, but if anybody that watches this, like if you put that same mindset toward anything and you hold yourself accountable, you're open to constructive criticism, even as like a a sergeant promotable, about to make staff sergeant, like as a squad leader, I would ask the privates, and we did what we call after action reviews, AARs. What we did, what were we supposed to do, and what can we do better? It's that ego that gets in the way. I personally think as I got older, it went away once 35 and up to now. I think for me, I had what I would call like an ego death, but ego is like some of the worst things. People think they know it all.
Yeah.
So do you think that having all the YouTube and access is making fighters not put in as much like sweat equity as you guys say? Like they think, oh, I got it now, I watched it on YouTube, and they're not actually grinding it out as much?
No, I think they're doing it even more. And I think that's why you're seeing a lot more parity coming throughout MMA. I really do. I think that the young generations of fighters are guys that started off not playing baseball, not playing football. Yeah, they started off in jiu-jitsu, wrestling, and kickboxing. And this new era of this new breed of fighter can do it all. Like I look at what, like, just got done holding pads for Kai Kamaka, and he's like driving a Ferrari. Natan Levy, right? This guy could kick your freaking head off from 9 different directions. But these guys have been doing martial arts since the start of their athletic career, right? Like you or I, like, hey, man, I played football and then I jumped into this. No, bro, these kids are like starting off that way. Like I have a kid out and I train with out in Austin, and his name is Austin. This kid is like 12 years old and he's just a freaking
savage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I mean, this generation literally, I mean, what is it? MMA 30 years old?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, like in the spotlight of MMA, I know there were scraps back in the day, some bare knuckle, but yeah, these kids now, like, could you imagine trying to like go, all right, I'm 25, I want to be but I've never trained. You go in against some kid who's been training since he was 2.
Mop you up.
Mop you up.
Oh. And like I talked to Kai and, and Ige and Jeremy and these guys. You have to let this sport consume you. Right? You have to, it's bro, we're all like these weird serial killer. And like, this is all we do is think about it over and over and over and daily.
You have to be obsessed.
You have to be obsessed with this to the point where like at night, I'll look at a bunch of stuff, or I'm looking at this. In the morning I wake up, guarantee I have 9 different DMs from all these different kids or guys that I coach and corner. What do you think about this? Check this out. Look at this technique. Right. And that stuff like that makes me so proud, because I know like that switch never turns off. But in a lot of ways, it's like, turn that switch off, bro. Go to bed.
Yeah.
But they're consumed by growth. They love it. They love like Kai all day long. We'll sit there and just watch Piotr Jan over and over and over and over and over. And then we'll go hit pads. Hey, I saw Piotr Jan do this on the pads. Let's work it. Let's try it.
Yeah.
Let's try this. Let's do this. And that switch never turns off for these guys. And there's just a level of obsession that I think that like most fighters just maybe don't have. You know what I mean? That's what I love about our guys.
What, like fighters, we're talking about athletes, people that grew up. Well, you're with these. You're in this like as much as you could possibly be in this. I want to ask you about like the athlete versus like the dog, the fighter.
Sure.
There's got like a Sean Strickland. Like that dude will scrap with you in like a CVS parking lot. Not, throwing shade. I love Sean. I hope I can meet him.
Oh, yeah.
But I look at him as a dog, as a fighter.
100%.
But he doesn't come across to me like he wrestled since elementary school.
Nope.
So I tend to identify more with the fighters than the athletes, because I've never really been like a true athlete. How do you think they both play out in the end? It seems like I do think personally, like the athletes will take it. Look at all the wrestlers that are champs right now.
Yep.
I mean, all of them. Usman, Aljo, every Dillashaw, Cody wrestled, Gaethje, got the interim. How do you think it in the future, now that I feel like there's going to be less fighters in all athletes?
Well, so that's a great observation by you. And this is something that Coach Follis used to ingrain in me at a young age. He had a characteristic traits for anybody that walks in the cage. He says each person has these 3 characteristics. And one of them is fighter, competitor, athlete, right? And so this is a coaching point for him, to me. And so he talked about, and through his analogy was, he talked about Chris Lieben. He said Chris Lieben was a fighter of a 10, right? athlete of a 3, competitor of a 5. Okay. And now, in his point was, he says, now what happens when you take the fighter out of the environment that made them mad, made them mean, made them the fighter that they are, right? Chris Lieben lived in a broken home or this, I don't know, I'm paraphrasing, but Chris Lieben he was fucking mad. He was angry, right? But over time, you start to grow, you get a girlfriend, you might have a baby, right? And the fighter element of you begins to dissipate because of your environment. Right?
Conor McGregor.
There you go. So now, what are you left on? Let's say your fighter that was a 10 that was helping you win these fights is now a 4. You're not that mad anymore. You're not trying to kill somebody, right? So now you're left with an athlete that's a 4, a competitor that's a 5, and now a fighter that's a 4. So as a coach, you have to understand that this fighter over time naturally begins to dissipate. But your job now is how to raise the level of the other things so that you have those skill sets to build up on when that fighter begins to dissipate. Now, for Sean Strickland, he'll probably be a fighter his entire life and then retire.
Yeah.
Right? Like if that fighter begins to dissipate from him, we'll know pretty quick. But his athleticism, fucking 2, right? The guy can't even do 2 feet together and do jumps, whatever else. But he's a competitor and he wants to win, right? And he's a fucking fighter, bro. He is a dog. Sean will tell you, he doesn't do S&C. He's not doing ice baths. He was ripping on us about that yesterday, right? He doesn't do any of that shit. His training comes from hard sparring and hard wrestling and hard grappling. And he'll tell you that. Now you get a guy like Brad Tavares, straight up athlete as a 10, wants to win at everything he does. And he's a Hawaiian fighter, right? That he has all those things. But Brad doesn't want to see you hurt.
Yeah.
Brad wants to win the fight, right? Brad doesn't want to see you not go home to your kids. Sean Strickland does. Yeah, Sean Strickland wants you to die in hopes that you get fucking
burn up, trucking the way
and everybody dies along with but Brad has all those other attributes at a 10, right?
I think that's why I am drawn to Strickland.
For sure.
You know, I'm from Jersey. I grew up in the don't get sad, get mad era.
Yeah.
You know, like let's just fucking burn the boats.
Bite down and go.
Yeah. So I've always wondered about that. That's a very awesome way to like say it. Like, what do you do when because like for right now, for instance, Fight Junkeez, right? You know, I know John because of Dana White and Billy. I held a sign in front of the Apex, said Uncle Dana, Iraq vet, let me watch the fights, like 2 years ago.
That's awesome.
And Billy came out and they got me. I built a relationship with John over
and then Billy's my boy too.
Yeah, Billy's dope.
For a long time.
He just left.
Did he?
Yeah, he was here.
Yeah, I love that guy.
But John's, you know, he saw the love I had for the sport, and now I'm here. But I'm hungry. I've been through the divorces and living in a fifth wheel camper, and still going through some, like, you know, I'm still building, but I'm hungry and I'm gonna outwork everybody.
Yeah,
and I'm not trying to make anyone look bad. It's not personal, but I got daughters, and I'm coming for it.
Yeah, that's it. Stay up with me.
Yeah, or I'm gonna bypass you. But listen, when
don't ever apologize for that. Like, don't apologize for that mindset.
Yeah.
Right? Because people aren't going to understand that. Right? And somebody else's perception will never be mine. Right? Your perception of me won't be my reality. Right? So unapologetic work ethic. Stay up with me then, motherfucker. Right? Like, dude, I'm around this in my industry. So the first thing people do will talk shit and say why you're not this because you weren't that, or you weren't this or you weren't that, right? So the first instinct is to try to drag you down so that they can try to be at your level. You understand?
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck. Like, it is what it is. I'm going to continue doing what I do. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to be honorable. I'm going to take care of my team the way that I take care of my team, and say whatever the fuck you want about me. I don't care. I really don't.
Yeah.
You know? And look, at the end of the day, hate, like Eddie Brocco had the best line. Hate is the emotion of the underachiever. Hate is the preferred emotion of the underachiever. Right? Think about that. That
makes sense. Yeah. I love everybody.
Like when have you ever seen a dude killing it hate on anybody? They don't even care. They don't even have time to do it.
Yeah, no time.
They don't even give a shit.
That's
right?
true.
Hate is the preferred emotion of the underachiever.
Yeah, there's enough success and time for all of us to win.
Bro, there's not a limited amount of success. There's not. There's not somebody keeping a cap on it going, oh, that's it. We're out of success. No one else can get it, right? There's enough cake for everybody to eat. It's up to you to go fucking get the cake, right? It's not up to me, bro. Like, it's up to you. Look in the mirror, take some accountability, and handle your shit. And I'll tell you what, that's where a switch flipped for me was I had that same mentality for the longest fucking amount of time. Oh, man, tough break.
Yeah.
Wish it was me. Boo, boo, boo. And you know what I started realizing was like, man, I'm going to start congratulating people for their success. I'm going to start putting a different emotion out there, right? Man, I'm proud of this guy. Good for you, bro. I'm so happy for you. And generally feel those feelings of happiness for that individual, for their success.
Yeah.
And guess what started happening? It started coming back towards me too, right? That love and feel that I would give for somebody, man, dude, I'm so proud of you, bro. And really be authentically proud and happy for that person. Boom. Started to land on my lap too.
Yeah, it's crazy how that works.
Crazy how that works, right?
I mean, I was telling my wife, I'm like, I've ate a lot of shit over the last 7 years. You know, it's been pretty rough with addiction, going on 5 years sober from opiates in July. Feel great. And I was like, I know that we went from me not doing too much to me just running into Fight Junkeez like a psychotic nut. I was like, but John blessed me. He literally was like, hey, bro, here's a filet mignon.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to give you this shit.
Yeah.
I'm going to eat it all. Like, I'm going to get up early. I'm going to study.
Yeah, leave no crumbs.
I know when you took a shit Tuesday of 2001. Like, that's what I did. I dove in. And you're right. I'm not going to apologize anymore. So I'm saying it now. No more apologies.
Yeah, but
I'm coming for it.
Look, dude, I'm going to raise the level. I'm going to raise the standard, whatever that might be. But look, I'm competing against myself.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be the best version of me. I don't care about anybody else around me. Look, I want other gyms and other teams to be successful. That's going to raise the bar for everybody else. But I'm not going like, oh, well, how many awards did this guy win or this or that? Yeah. Like somebody called Kevin Ioli. Kevin called me to congratulate me for winning Yahoo Coach of the Year.
Yes, congrats.
And thank you. And then Kevin's like, I got to tell you, he didn't tell me who it was, but I have a pretty good idea who it was. Called him and said like, the complaint that I won Coach of the Year. What the fuck are you complaining about? Right? What are you mad about? Are you stacking credentials?
Yeah, did I like make you not be able to win?
Dude, don't blow out somebody else's candle. It's not going to make your room shine any brighter, bro. Work fucking harder. Fucking harder. And I kind of have an idea who it is, and I laugh because it's like the same shit over and over and over with that particular person.
Yeah.
But what are you mad about?
Their own life.
100%. 100%. Work fucking harder.
Work harder, ladies and gentlemen. So, I know you're a busy guy. I look forward to coming to the gym.
Yeah.
I look forward to building like I said, I don't want to just be some journalists, and nothing against the MMA community. I'm sure my goal is to be up there with all these guys. But there's no timeline. I'm just doing what I love. But I do want to like build an organic relationship with all you guys for sure. I want to train. I'm just super excited to be here. I'm so happy that you came in to get a coach of champions. First I've ever sat with, but I've always said like I'm a huge fan of Dana White.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of the behind the scenes, the coaches, because they don't get the accolades. Like how many times have I been, to my soldiers, go out there, go do this.
For sure.
And I don't want anyone to know that I'm just go.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I'm the leader. I eat last. I sleep last.
Yep.
Doesn't matter. You go because you deserve it. And that's just how I live my life. And I know that you guys, as much as you will never say that because your ego is not there, but you guys do deserve it. These fighters are where they are because of their own work ethic and their passion, but because they have good leadership, and leadership is like the backbone of everything when it comes to success. So I personally I'm glad you guys exist.
Thank you.
Because I love this sport.
Yeah. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I think when you get into this sport, a lot of that perspective I think you have is your fighters will do the talking for you. They'll tell the story of what goes on by their work and what they do in the cage, right? You don't have to be this big rah-rah guy and jump out there and say all this shit, right? Allow them to do the talking for you, and good things will happen. And that's what happens with our guys, man. And what I love so much about our gym and our team is there's 5 or 6 or 7 other coaches in there that are all in the same role that I am. And you would walk in our gym and see, it's hard to point out who their leader is, because each of us have a role there of leadership and high expectations, and we all are head coaches to our guys, and there's enough cake to go around, and we're successful because of it.
Well, yeah, that's a good way for a team to operate, right?
100%.
If you have too many chiefs, things don't work. Everybody's got to be a specialty.
Yep.
Does the gym, before we end, there's a lot of people, to include myself. Like, I did a lot of jiu-jitsu while I was in the military, and I've been to 10th Planet here and there, but I've moved so much that I haven't been able to like sustainably achieve different ranks and belts. Are there lower level besides the veteran like classes, or is it just a pro fight gym?
No, we're a membership based gym first.
Okay.
Membership based gym first. So the mold that Randy started Extreme Couture on was basically like your members will train with pro fighters. So what he did is like Jay Huron, for example, in lieu of him paying the gym dues or paying a percentage to the gym, he had to coach a certain amount of classes. And then Mike Pyle was my coach forever because I'd come to all of Mike Pyle's classes, right? So Mike would be the one teaching you, but in exchange, he didn't pay the gym any dues, right? So that was kind of like the novelty of training at Extreme Couture back then was like, dude, I'm going to train with these pro fighters as my coaching staff. John Alessio, Gray Maynard, like all those guys that were there. So now the membership base, obviously there's still some former fighters that are coaching, but we're 700 members right now, and that's the meat and potatoes of what we do is membership based training.
Let's end with this. What would you say to the 37-year-old who's a little out of shape and he's intimidated to get in that gym? What would you say to get him in there?
I think the most important thing is to understand, like, it's inherently going to be intimidating when you think MMA, right? You're like, oh, dude, it's going to be scary. It's going to be this, it's going to be that. But I feel like we're the complete antithesis to that because we try to make sure we keep the doors open and we're friendly and we're this and we're that. And just come in and feel the environment and feel the culture. And once you're around that kind of environment and culture, you understand it's like, okay, these men and women here love the identity that the gym brings us. And that's what it is. Like, I don't want you to come into the gym and be member 433112, right? I want you to have a name. I want you to, I want to know that this person is here for what reasons, right? I want to know, like, hey, they have a family, they have this, they have that, and become part of more of a culture rather than just a fucking LVAC where you just scan in and go do your workout.
Gotcha.
Like it needs to have a family environment to it, and that's what I feel like Extreme Couture has brought. And obviously, I'm case in point, man. I'm member number 1. I've never left. I run the gym now. It's been my family. And I started off there at day 1, just as a member.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming today.
My pleasure.
I had a blast, and I might even head over to the gym in a little bit.
Yep.
And check it out. So, everybody, Coach of Champions right here, Extreme Couture, Eric Nicksick out of Henderson, right?
Yep.
Just want to say, stay tuned. Fight Junkeez, we're going to be coming to you with all kinds of content. We have our Monday and our Thursday breakdowns. And I appreciate you guys. Fight Junkeez, sponsored by MMA Fight Universe. And a big shout and a thank you to John Orlando. Thank you, guys.